They're going through changes, and today we're talking about them. Big Mouth is a controversial animated show on Netflix focusing on the terror that is puberty. No matter what you think of the show, the writing and voice talents of John Mulaney and Nick Kroll are superb, and so are the wide array of characters. Season 4 just came out, so let's talk about it. Hey guys, I'm Brad with Wicked Binge, and this is Big Mouth, Good to Evil. Today, we're starting from the top of the list and moving until we hit the worst character in this universe. These are the good. The Gracious Gratitoad gains the Gold Medal of Good. While being one of the newest additions on our list, the Gratitoad has leaped into all of our hearts as the morally best character in the show.
And I'm just so grateful to meet you.
Like all the other monsters, he's a physical embodiment of an emotion, and in this case, it's gratitude. The Gratitoad shows Jessie how to be grateful for things in her life. He helped her realize how much her friends and Matthew mean to her, and helped Nick beat his evil self and the giant Tito. Thanks to the Gratitoad, both Tito and the Depression Kitty were shrunk down to a manageable size, even eating one of the mosquitoes when they tried to make others feel bad. His southern charm earns him the gold, and he deserves it. The silver medal goes to none other than Coach Steve. Steve is the childlike, idiotic PE teacher at Bridgeton Middle School. While Steve lacks some knowledge, he also lacks any and all negativity. Steve also loves being a coach. He even denied getting a higher paying job to stay in his position. Steve becomes friends with Jay and the Shame Wizard without caring about certain actions taken by those two, and stays friends with them for the series.
Hi, I'm Steve. I'm your best friend.
He doesn't get any respect from the teachers and most of the students, but that doesn't bring him down. He's happy to be in second place. A lot of you saw this coming, but Missy Foreman Greenwald takes bronze. Missy was raised in a very progressive home, which means she was encouraged to involve herself in the sciences and be comfortable with her body. Throughout the first 3 seasons, she's not only a loving and caring individual, but has no problems being a strong and independent woman. She has dated multiple boys, but she stays steadfast in her beliefs, such as when she dumps Lars for being sexist.
I can wear whatever I want.
While she was pushed into harassing Nick before dating him, this was because of her new hormone monster. She also had many problems dating Andrew in secret because she was disobeying her parents, so she tries her best to keep her parents happy. Season 4 has her take a massive turn in becoming her own person by getting in touch with her heritage, showing a whole new side of her. She has no problems cussing out Devin or speaking her mind during this time, which is why she only gets the bronze. Next up on our list is Detectives DeMont and Flores. They are the main detectives on the Ponytail Killer case, and while they try their best to catch this maniac, they often make mistakes based on credible evidence. For example, they thought Andrew was the killer because his DNA was on some of the evidence, or thinking Coach Steve was the killer because he knew a lot about some of the victims.
Your boy here's a perverted killer, man.
I knew it.
Even though they make mistakes, they will rectify them, such as releasing both of them after new evidence comes to light. They were also hired to find Jesse, and Flores even teaches kids his famous street smarts. But they're also incompetent, such as not being able to catch the killer or not finding Jesse. If it wasn't for their incompetence, they would be higher on our list.
Got a pair of her panties for the cadaver dog?
Coming up next is none other than Gina Alvarez. Gina is a student at Bridgeton Middle School and a prominent member of the soccer team. When she was introduced, it's because she's the first female student to really grow breast, which draws the boys' attention and the girls' jealousy. Gina comes from a working-class family and doesn't have much, which makes her a steadfast woman who protests a play put on by Mr. Lizer, as well as his sexist dress code. She becomes good friends with Lola, mostly out of sympathy, but it's still worth pointing out, hence her placement here on the list. Following that, we have Nick's father, Elliot Birch. There is not a lot to talk about when it comes to him. Although he appears often, he doesn't do a lot that lands him anywhere lower, since he loves his children with all his heart and his wife even more so. But we still had to place him on this list, since he's obviously biased towards Nick over his siblings, as he didn't care that Judd was setting fire to Leah's hair, since he was too focused on Nick.
I love you, Nikki.
I love you too, Dad.
But he still lands squarely on this half of the list. Next is Jesse's dad, Greg Glasser. Greg is a good father. He may be a pothead pothead and is often forgetful or idiotic, but he tries his best to be there for his daughter, even though he had trouble holding down a job for the longest time. He was with his wife Shannon for 20 years and was loyal to the very end. Nowadays, he lives in an apartment with his new girlfriend, but he's still there for his daughter, and nothing stands in the way for him.
I'm dating the cheese sample girl at Trader Joe's. Yay!
Greg is at least a good dad, and even more so, a good person. Caleb is next. Caleb is the asocial but intelligent special needs kid and is one of the most popular characters in the show. He's the cameraman for Matthew's multiple projects and friends with him. He annoys his peers because he lacks the ability to read social cues, having no problem in making a list of everyone who went to the bathroom or pointing out something embarrassing about his classmate Nick.
I'm a good person.
That is not what others say about you.
He also has some anger issues, since when someone touches his backpack without permission, he will severely beat them, such as when he did so to Andrew or when he pushed Guy into the pool at Guytown. But even with all that, he still lands on the good half of the list. Rick limps into our next spot. Rick is the old and decrepit hormone monster that coaches both Steve and currently Nick. Rick doesn't know what he's doing most of the time, but always tries to bring his patience up, such as when he calls Nick the man for vomiting when trying to ask a girl out.
You're the man, Steve.
He's always trying his best, and even tells Steve to tell the detectives more about what he knows about the ponytail killer, even though they thought he was the killer. He's old and is often lost, but he's found his place here. Duke Ellington is flying into the next spot. Loosely based on the real-life figure, Duke Ellington is a ghost that lives in the attic of the Birch House and often gives advice to Nick and the others. He was a famous musician and had been training since his youth, which led him down a lot of weird paths, such as leaving a pregnant girl and changing his name, or blackmailing his father so that he can leave the city with his friends.
I have made tremendous mistakes in my life.
Despite his past, he tries his best to give good advice, like helping Andrew with his sexuality or helping Nick get his body back from Nick Starr when he was a ghost. Duke lands this low because he made a lot of bad decisions in his life, but in death, he became a much better man, which means he doesn't fall to the gray. The very deserving Matthew McDell slides in next. Matthew's one of the only openly gay characters, and he's by far one of our favorite. Matthew runs the morning announcements and also makes multiple news and news-adjacent segments.
You heard it here. Nick dumped Jesse.
He's sassy and rude to a lot of students and even adults, but over the course of the series, he becomes nicer. He grew up in a conservative area of Texas and had gay inclinations from a young age. And while his mother was not positive about this in the latest parts of the series, his father said that he knew that Matthew was gay and wasn't mad at him about it. He was bullied at his old school and is still an outcast now, but he's not an outcast from the good half of our list. The first of our main characters on this list, Jesse Glasser, comes into our next spot. Jessie is just as, if not more so, sarcastic as Matthew, and has no problems being a sarcastic and sassy 13-year-old. She's a star student and very outspoken, an avid protester of Liza's sexist and racist play or dress code. She's also a good friend, trying her best to cheer up Nick after his date for the dance dumped him, even sharing a kiss with him. However, once she started puberty, she started to become really angry, thanks to the introduction of her hormone monstrous.
I said get up!
In the future, shown by Nick Starr, she's still a potent activist, which means she stays steadfast even far into the future. In the same future, however, she tries to blow up a spaceship and leaves Nick to die. But since this was all a dream, we can't really count that against or for her. In the end, Jesse's by far the best of the main characters. Jesse's hormone monstrous Connie lands in this spot. Connie is a hormone monstrous that helps young women through puberty and represents a side of those women who strive for glamour.
You're on the rise, girl.
She tries her best to lead Jessie down a good path in life, like having her dump Nick lightly, or how when she became Nick's hormone monster, she still tried despite him being her first male client. However, due to her shifting emotions, she leads Jessie down bad paths as well, such as cussing Nick out in front of the school, or being too blinded by Michelangelo's beauty to see all the red flags he was spouting off. Another point that goes against her is that she can't handle being told bad things about her appearance, not having it when Nick insults her hair. Despite everything, she tries her best, and that's all she can really do, right? Rounding out the good section of our list is Devon, ex-husband of Devin LeSeven. Devon is the oldest student at Bridgeton Middle School and has many old man diseases, such as arthritis and senility. He was Devin's boyfriend and eventual child husband before dumping and divorcing her because she was, quote, a meanie bobini. He loved Devin for a while, marrying her, even though everyone didn't find her the hottest. He tries to help Missy understand her culture better during season 4, teaching her the tricks of code switching and other such things.
You don't have one of these?
What?
You don't have a code switch?
But the reason he lands right outside the gray area is that he's kind of a surface level guy, falling for Gina specifically for her body and feeling insulted by the fact that other people didn't find his girlfriend as attractive as he does. But this doesn't mean he deserves to fall any lower than this spot on the list. With that, we wrap up the good part of the list, so now we move on to the morally gray spectrum we call the gray area. Starting off the gray area is Leah Birch. Leah doesn't appear often, but she more than earns her spot on our list. Leah seems to care about her brothers to a degree, handing down her cell phone to Nick when she gets a new one, or defending them when need be. But although she cares for her family, she's not against a little vigilante justice, as it's called. In season 1, she throws parties without her parents' knowledge. And during this party, after a chain of events that led to her boyfriend trying to force her to do something she didn't want to do, she put a bar-filled beanie on his head and embarrassed him in front of the whole party. Because this is her most major appearance, she can't fall any lower. Following Leah comes Barbara Glauberman, Andrew's mom. Barbara is a good mom, since she cares for her son and his health, even to the point of being overbearing. She also doesn't like her husband's anger issues, getting after him for yelling at Andrew. She ranks here because even though she appears often, she doesn't have an arc to pull from, since the menopause banshee stuff didn't go anywhere.
Change is coming.
Her past is also questionable, since she seemed to be a groupie and caused a crash that allowed her to meet Marty. Not to mention the two of them decided on the name Andrew because it was easy to yell in anger.
Andrew!
Yeah, that worked.
From one mother to another, Diane Birch ranks next. Diane is said to be the smother mother, since she smothers her children and sometimes takes it too literally. When Leah was little, Diane would put her in a cabinet until she would stop crying. This is why she ranks this low on the list. However, she has gotten better, but it's still a blot on her record that is in definite need of pointing out. Finally, we get to Andrew Glauberman, one of the main characters. The show follows him and his misadventures. Puberty hit Andrew like a train, and because of this, he's been hounded by Maury the hormone monster.
If you want me to go away, you know what you have to do.
He's a nerdy and awkward kid who's such good friends with Nick, he's considered the fourth kid of the Birch family. But he's also an idiot, especially when puberty or girls come into the picture, such as causing himself to be considered the prime suspect in the ponytail killer case because he got his DNA all over some new evidence. He's also jealous of Lars and Missy hanging out, to the point of pulling Lars out of his wheelchair because he thought he was faking his disability. He only ranks in the gray because he tries his best, and as he's going through puberty and under the influence of hormones and Maury, we can't hit him too hard. That's also why Nick Birch doesn't rank lower than he is. But he ranks below his friend Andrew for a few reasons. This late bloomer was spoiled from a young age thanks to his parents, and as such, has made a few bad decisions. When Jesse dumped him, he went around and said that he was the one that dumped her, or how he touched Gina's boob. But the real reason he ranks below Andrew is because of Nick Starr. Nick Starr is the future version of Nick, as seen in his anxiety-driven vision, and who he fears he will become. Nick Starr cut off all his friendships, and his only companion is a robotic version of Andrew named Andrew 3000. Nick no longer sees the people he used to be friends with as people worthy of his time.
Nick Starr!
That's my name. Leave me alone.
This fear was so great that it overtook him in the last episode, and Nick Starr took over his body. Without the help of his friends and the gratitude, Nick could have very well become this version of himself. This is why he ranks below Andrew, even though they're pretty much in the same spot. Next on our list is Marty Glauberman, father of Andrew. Marty is a loud and angry person and often complains about the smallest things. Not to mention that he's strongly opinionated and won't move from whatever position he holds. He also shows no signs of loving his son. He said that he only cares about 4 people in the world, and Andrew wasn't on the list. He also said that he'd only ever been proud of Andrew after his son struck him in the face. He also makes wild accusations that have no basis, such as accusing his son for the departure of an actor from a show or a child for stealing his idea on Shark Tank. He tears off his son's mustache using a waxing strip and verbally berates him during most situations.
He's too developed for his age. The kid's a freak.
The only reason he doesn't rank lower is because at times he can be good, such as giving parenting advice to Greg or decent romantic advice to Nick. Greg's ex-wife, Shannon Glasser, is up next on our list. Shannon is Jesse's mother and Jesse's first post-puberty target to yell at. Shannon ranks this low for one major reason. Her unfaithfulness is the focal point of her character. She stopped caring for and loving Greg when he started to become the pothead we all know and love, and the two of them argued constantly. She started to have an affair with Cantor Dina, and this tore apart not just her marriage but Jesse's home life. And she didn't realize what this entailed until way later.
Your father and I have been struggling for a long time.
However, after the breakup with Dina, she does her best to make sure she's a much better mother and a much better person, which is why she doesn't fall any lower, although she originally did. Jay Bilzerian is next. Jay is friends with Nick, Jesse, and Andrew. Some even assume him to be his own hormone monster. It's also later confirmed that he has ADHD and cannot self-reflect or self-actualize, and he's clingy. That's because of his abusive home situation. His older brothers beat him, his father is absent, and his mother does not care about him.
You guys are the worst.
He became good friends with Coach Steve because the two of them are outcast. However, the reason he ranks so low is because of the bad decisions he makes. The worst of those being that he brought cotton candy brandy to a party, and the reason there was underage drinking at said party. Other than that, and his rampant libido, he's a good kid with a lot of issues, but he still lands solidly in the gray. Jay's ex-girlfriend, Lola Scumpy, ranks next on our list. Lola was originally one of the bullies and Devin's friend, even though she didn't realize that Devin wasn't truly her friend. She doesn't know who her father is, and her mother is verbally abusive and neglectful. She's melodramatic and attention-seeking, which is a definite negative. She also doesn't have many friends, so much so that she threatened people who tried to have Devin as their partner for the science fair.
Are you calling me a midge because you're a nobody?
So yeah, she bullied people, but that's because she was trying to be cool like her friend Devin. Lately though, she's become much better, which is what saves her from falling to the depths of the bad to evil category. Don't call him the puberty fairy, it's Maury, Matthew and Andrew's hormone monster. Maury leads teenagers through puberty. He represents the male's hormones and swinging emotions. Maury loves to torment Andrew at the worst times, no matter what's going on.
Come on. Wheels up in 30 seconds.
He also suggests illegal, inappropriate, or disgusting things to both Andrew and Matthew. However, while he loves torturing Andrew, he loves Matthew. He says that Matthew is his favorite kid, and while he still suggests gross or illegal things, he doesn't do it that much. He leads Matthew to find and date his boyfriend and partially helps him come out to his mother. He even blows up on Matthew's mom when she feels uncomfortable about her son. Even though she couldn't hear him, Maury tried his best to help Matthew, and for that, he ranks here instead of lower. Next up is Shane Lizard. Oh wait, we mean the Shame Wizard. The Shame Wizard is a monster whose entire purpose is to flare up teenagers' shame so they can better themselves. At the beginning, he tried to shame the teens into weird positions such as making Andrew date Lola.
Saying that beggars can't be choosers.
He would constantly point out the flaws in students to weaponize their shame. He also forced hundreds of students to feel a massive wave of shame. He is sadistic, as he enjoys watching people wallow in self-pity. However, we later find out that he has no social life, has a poor relationship with his mother, and no relationship with his father. It isn't until Coach Steve becomes friends with him that he actually becomes a much better person, not torturing the students anymore. It's a shame that he doesn't get to rank higher, but that's just how things fell for him. And rounding out the gray area is Mona. Mona is Missy's personal hormone monstress and is by far the most intense of the hormone monsters. Mona doesn't convince people to do illegal things like Maury does, but she does convince Missy to do things against her usual morals. She convinces Missy to harass Nick during the play, or convinces her to ditch a school field trip to go hang out with her cousins.
I'll tell you what's gotten into her, baby. Me.
The reason she doesn't fall into the evil category is because she is the driving factor behind Missy coming into her own. But she still deserves this spot because she constantly tries to force Missy to break her moral standards and be a different person. And with that, we're now landing in the bad to evil category. Starting off with the bad to evil category is Devin LeSeven. Devin is the ex-wife of Devon and was controlling and rude, even to her child husband. She forced Devon to be called Devin so that their names would match.
Devin, but why?
Because my name is Devon!
Devin also berates other people, such as when she made fun of Missy after she had sugar. She dated Nick just to make Devon jealous and said she couldn't be called basic because she was dating a black dude. The only good thing is that she was at the forefront of women who protested Lizer and his policies, but she still deserves her place in the Hall of Evil. Up next on our list is Michelangelo, the fake hipster artist. Michelangelo is introduced as someone who skips school and encourages Jesse to do the same. When the two of them start dating, it goes from bad to worse, such as leading Jesse on to vaping, which could cause major problems down the line. He also commits acts of vandalism via graffiti that he does in the middle of the park in broad daylight. However, his worst actions are when he tries to force Jesse into doing something she didn't want to do, and then yelling and cursing her out when she laughed at his exposed parts.
Don't worry about coming back.
Doesn't know anything about what he claims and tries to force younger women into doing things they don't want to do. Yeah, he deserves to be here. Following him is cantor Dina Resnick. Dina is the local cantor at the synagogue that both Jesse and Andrew frequent. Dina is introduced as the lady that Jesse's mom is smooching in the big city. That caused the destruction of Jesse's life, being the woman that Shannon was having an affair with. Not just that, but after their relationship is in the open, she makes Shannon change her looks and hair to what she prefers, forcing her to do that with threatening to break up with her. She's manipulative in other ways, forcing Shannon to do things just because Dina wants that. Then, after she has shamelessly destroyed the Glazer family, she dumps Shannon with no warning and for no reason.
Closure. And the dance continues, does it not?
Dina is a terrible person, no matter how you slice it. She doesn't rank in the bottom because she hasn't committed any crimes, but she's still the most evil, non-criminal, non-monster in the show. Even though he's one of our favorite characters, Judd Birch is next on our list. Judd is in no uncertain terms a criminal maniac, and he's been one from a young age. In a flashback, when he was young, he would set his sister's hair on fire, or at least try to. As he's gotten older, he hasn't gotten better, since he's committed every crime from underage drinking to vandalism to full-on arson and pyromania. He calls himself an agent of chaos, going as far to buy drinks for minors or hiring raccoons to kill his brother.
I'm an agent of chaos, you little scrunt.
He doesn't rank in the bottom 3 because even though he's committed these crimes, no one's been hurt, as far as we know. Unlike the next couple of characters on this side of the spectrum. Ranking right outside the bottom 3 is everyone's favorite divorce lawyer, Guy Bilzerian. Guy is the quotable, seedy divorce lawyer who has worked on more cases than he could count. He's Jay's father and is rarely at home, much rather being in Guy Town than with his family. He cheats on his wife frequently, specifically with his assistant, Taffany. Not only that, he's a self-proclaimed pimp, which means he's breaking the law more than most.
I'm making you Pimp of the Month.
He cares for his family so little that he wouldn't even pay his son's bail, letting a primate do it instead. And he deserves his ranking. The final human on our list in the bronze medal of evil is none other than Terry Lizer. Lizer was a teacher at Bridgeton Middle School and was a bigoted, rude, and condescending man who constantly belittled people, especially Coach Steve. He even makes creepy passes at the female students. The worst part, however, is that no one saw his bad side at first. Multiple female students, especially Lola, thought he was dreamy because he was a well-spoken adult. It wasn't until much later does everyone realize his predatory behavior, such as making Lola rub his feet and harassing her. He even told Jessie, under his breath of course, that he wished that she would wake up deaf and blind.
Oh, I hope you wake up deaf and blind.
He deserved everything he got, especially that he got fired and possibly getting arrested. His spot in our list is very secured. The silver goes to Tito the Anxiety Mosquito. Tito is the embodiment of human anxiety and is often floating around those who have a lot of anxiety, like Natalie when she first introduced herself.
Coming here was a terrible mistake. Look at them, they hate you.
Tito will go as far as to make an entire dream in Nick's head about his anxieties and fears to make him doubt himself. She's also good friends with the Depression Kitty, and when the two of them combine forces, they can do horrible things to people. She's annoying, unhelpful, and could cause a lot of damage if left unchecked, especially when you look at her kaiju form in Nick's head. The Depression Kitty finishes off our list by earning the Gold Medal of Evil. Kitty is the physical embodiment of human depression and causes her clients to feel sad and unmotivated. We've only seen Jesse deal with her so far, but that's more than enough. Kitty tries her best to get Jesse to give up at every conceivable turn, even on big tests like the asses, which could decide her future.
Why don't you just give up?
When you combine her with Tito, they can cause a lot of damage, driving Vincent Van Gogh to suicide the last time they worked together. But her most egregious act happened within minutes of her introduction. She brought Jessie to the depression ward in Human Resources and tried to convince her to never move again. And when she tried to move, she laid down on top of her. This may not sound that bad until you consider the fact that if a human stays in Human Resources for too long, their puberty is halted forever and they never grow more mature. She not only tried to force Jessie into this, she tried to do it with the force of her whole body. That cements her role as the worst character in Big Mouth's cast. Alright guys, what do you think? Who are the best and worst characters in this crazy cartoon? Let us know in the comment section below. Don't forget to hit that notification bell and binge our Good to Evil playlist, where we break down the morality of the characters on your favorite cartoons, shows, and movies. But most importantly, stay wicked.